Hello and welcome back to DormSports. Once again, I'm Adam Vivang, Andrew McGowan, and we've got our sport coats on today because we're acting the part of a general manager.
GMs.
So, obviously today's topic is general managers. We're going to discuss a little bit about how you become a general manager, and we got a special guest actually today, a little bit later, and then we've even got a little bit of a game later. So let's get right into it. Andrew, what exactly could you tell us about what a general manager does?
Okay, Adam. So, here, imagine a sports team as a company. And as a sports general manager, you're the CEO of this company. And the professional athletes, those are your employees. And then your job as a general manager is to go find a coaching staff to help manage your players. And you're also supposed to look at the team's budget and revenue. And you're also the team spokesperson. You go out, talk to the media, conferences, interviews, anything. That's the job of the general manager.
Right.
So basically, that's basically the basic requirements of what a general manager does for their sports teams.
They've certainly got a large responsibility, and interestingly enough, I found an article on Monday Morning Quarterback with Peter King. And it was titled 10 Things I Learned About Being a General Manager, and the person who wrote it was Scott Pioli, who is the former Chiefs general manager. And he actually addresses a couple of these things. One thing is, we noticed how many things you listed off as being one of their jobs, and I think the big part about that is they have a lot of responsibility. And what Scott Pioli actually said was that the term general manager really does fit the job because of the wide range of tasks you have to do. You're really managing pretty much all aspects of your team. And even more so, I think us as fans, we don't really know what general managers do. I think for us, it looks like a general manager's main job is to buy and sell players. And another thing Scott Pioli said in his list was that the concept of fantasy football really kind of makes it difficult for the fan to really understand what the real job of a general manager is. And it could be surprising because a lot of times I sit and play fantasy football and say, I'm a general manager now. But in reality, we're focusing on...
It gives you a little bit of power,
right?
Yeah, you feel like you're
and it's fun. I love it. But I think he makes a good point. Fantasy football is really based on, the desire of one player to do well. And he even said that, he's gotten emails and things of saying like, oh, hey, we want this player to get more time with the ball. We want this player to touch the ball more. It kind of takes away from his job. That's not what a general manager's job is to do. He's got to oversee the entire operation.
He's supposed to make a winning team out there. He's not focusing on one player alone.
Right.
He wants to create a winning team.
He doesn't care about the fantasy points. Another thing I think we need to look at is there can be different types of GMs. So, I think you would agree with that, right?
Yeah. Well, in particular, at least for baseball, there's now sort of this old school versus new school sort of GM. And old school being they used to just scout players more.
Right.
And now with new school, it's statistical analysis. And that's becoming a huge part of the game ever since actually the book Moneyball came out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that actually revolutionized a little bit of baseball.
And even before the book, though, too, when it was actually going on, and Billy Beane was really making this bold statement by doing so, other teams were beginning to notice. I read an article in the New York Times talking about this new school versus old school mentality, and one of the people they talked about was the former general manager of the St. Louis Cardinals, Walt Jocketty, and he kind of said that him and the other people in charge, in the owners and stuff like that, didn't really agree on what they were doing with the team. And he said, we looked at both sides of it, and something along that, and this isn't a direct quote, I don't actually remember the direct quote obviously directly, but he said basically that they didn't agree on the direction they should go with the team, and they decided that it would be best for them to split ways. And this was kind of surprising because Walt
won a World Series
and made it to the playoffs
7 times.
7 times in his 13 years as general manager, which is pretty successful.
That's a good record if you ask anyone around. Getting to the playoffs more times, more than half the time you've been in the league is an accomplishment in itself.
And yeah, I think this becomes then we see this debate in baseball that's brought up by Moneyball is there's a disagreement between the traditional scouting way of evaluating and signing players and this new statistical analysis way. We kind of see these general managers becoming younger and a lot more educated in stats analysis.
Oh yeah, that's true. You can just look at guys, for example, Theo Epstein, Ben Sherrington, Billy Beane, of course,
Right.
being an innovator, and then Andrew Friedman of the Tampa Bay Rays. All these guys have started moving towards this new approach to the game where a lot of it has to do now with more of player development than instead of going into free agency and getting players. It used to be about getting the biggest name out there, and by throwing the biggest bucks, you get the best player. And that's how it was. I mean, that's what scouts were doing back in the day, seeing the best player. But now it's a little bit more. It goes into who can draw walks, who can do who can work the count, who can do a bunch of different things, and
not only in baseball, I'm sure.
And
most leagues look at the stats now more than
most
just talking
people
about
do.
a player. And,
I mean, I think sports itself have been evolving, especially since technology has, of course, been becoming better and better. You start being able to use computers and whatnot to work on the game.
And coming up next right now, we're going to have a special interview for you. One of our friends, Ethan Spalding at the University of Wisconsin. Ethan has done a large amount of research in baseball statistics, and I think he could really give us some good insight on this, disagreement between scouting methods and statistical analysis methods and things like that. So let's give him a call.
All right, here we go.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, Ethan? How you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
Can't complain. We've been talking a little bit about general managing and a little bit about the MLB, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about this new general manager mentality focusing a lot on statistics.
Yeah, I think that really people say it's focused on statistics, and they think that statistics are what people are using exclusively to improve talent evaluation, but really it's just an improvement in intelligence and the amount people are thinking and the amount of information being put into running a baseball team, not just statistically, also in scouting, also in just looking at baseball as a smarter talent evaluator, and that's how, and both in a way that can save money on players that are being signed on the free agent market, and on as just finding good players that you can develop and win with.
All right. So what do you think? I mean, I guess what do you think the reason is for MLB teams to go to this new direction of statistical analysis and kind of going away from the traditional scouting method that we used to see?
I think because stats allow people to be smarter, as I already said, and being smarter ultimately equates to winning more ball games. I mean, look at the Rays. The Rays don't have that much money. They can't just buy a team. They can't see a guy like Robinson Cano sign him to a 10-year, $240 million contract. They have to find players who are cheap for some reason, like Ben Zobrist. Ben Zobrist is, honestly, in terms of his value stats, like wins over replacement, one of the best players in baseball, but he's completely underrated, completely underpaid. That's how teams have to win, especially teams like the Rays. And then teams like the Red Sox and the Yankees see that, oh, look at this team, they're not spending that much money, they're winning a ton of games. What if we use those methods but with a lot of money? And that's how the Red Sox just get great and win World Series like they have so many times in recent years. And because of those great results, there's no reason not to invest in a scouting department that incorporates more stats, and more importantly, a intelligent player operations department.
Okay, one last question for you, Ethan. I know that you've read and seen the movie Moneyball, and many of us have seen the movie as well, and remember the scene with Billy Beane and the scouts discussing certain players, and we kind of see the scouts saying things like, this player has an ugly girlfriend, which means he has low confidence, as a justification why not to sign him to their team. Is this a fair depiction of this new school versus old school mentality?
No, I don't think it's a fair depiction at all. I think that if you look at the smartest teams in baseball right now, teams like the Rays, teams like the Cardinals, they have great scouting systems. They just know that they need to look at things smart and maybe not just find a player who has great confidence, but find a player who has a good eye, a trait that really was underrated for a good amount of the early 21st century and a lot before that. I mean, really what you just need to find is players that have skills that are underpaid for on the market, and you can beat the system that way, and that's how you win a lot of games. And I think that scouts are important for that, and I think baseball teams realize that too, and that's why you see teams just investing a lot in their scouting. And so the smart teams like the Rays, like the Cardinals, like the Red Sox, they all have great scouting systems as well as great statistical analysts.
All right, thank you, Ethan. That's that's a lot of information for us. Thank you so much. It really helps.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, of course, anytime. All right, see ya. Welcome back. Thank you again to Ethan for all the information he provided.
Yeah, that was really helpful.
Yeah, very helpful. It's good to hear from him. And what I want to do now is let's look at a couple of GMs who we kind of see as being some of the better at what they do, better GMs at what they, at their job. So do you have any specifics or a top 5 list or something like that?
Well, I'd say I got a top 5 list right now as in baseball today. I think top 5 GMs, definitely Billy Beane. Job he's done in Oakland with the little amount of money and producing a winner almost the past 3 years has been terrific. Andrew Friedman of the Tampa Bay Rays, him too. They didn't have a winning season until 2008, and they also have a very small payroll. They can't go out and sign marquee free agents, but they do have a great farm system where they develop players. I think Theo Epstein, the job he did on the Red Sox for 2004, 2007 was great, and he's also right now, even though the Cubs they're not winning, but they're doing he's doing a good job by developing a lot of players in their farm system. They should be good, I think.
Well, yeah.
I think soon, maybe not necessarily this year, but hopefully down the line. I also think John Mozeliak, the St. Louis Cardinals GM. He's also they have been terrific as well.
The Cardinals have been
he's been putting together
playoff contenders.
Playoff contenders the past couple of years. I mean, we can go back even more than a couple of years, but
right.
He doesn't even he just works with what he has, and he's doing a great job. And I also think Ben Sherrington, even though he's new to the GM game, he took over a situation with the Sox, which wasn't really good, and was able to actually move a bunch of salary, clear up a lot of space for the Sox, basically hitting a reset button for them, and sure enough, the next year he goes out and wins a World Series.
I think I completely agree with the list. Obviously, I'd have Billy Beane in my top 5, probably my number 1 as well. I think Ben Sherrington definitely deserves a lot of credit for what he's done in Boston because, when we were becoming freshmen, that's when they started gutting the team, and they had one of the worst seasons ever.
And you don't need to remind me.
Right, I know. I mean, well, okay. I think it's important to note that though, because I remember when we would talk about it in the fall of I believe it was 2012 when they were really not doing well.
Yeah,
it was really interesting to see him do this and the decision he's making, and then come back and now win the World Series in 2013. It was extremely impressive, and he put together...
and it's also because no one really thought they were going to win it.
Right. He put together a great team off of, he's not buying these big-name players. He put together a very successful team and won World Series. My hope is that you're correct. I hope Theo Epstein does bring the Cubs a World Series.
For Chicago. Hopefully end their misery.
I always root for Chicago. I'd like to take the moment to just address everyone and say that on behalf of the Chicago Cubs, this is our year. So I will most likely be flying back to Chicago next October to experience the craziness that the city will go through when the Cubs win a World Series. My fingers have been crossed for
as long
20 years.
You've been born.
Almost 21 years now. So. Just a couple people I want to add to your list outside of the MLB that I think have been doing a good job. As much as I hate to admit it, Pat Riley, is the president of the Miami Heat, and he also acts as the general manager. And as much as I think both of us, don't want to give the Heat as much credit
he
as
does
they deserve,
a stupendous job.
he does a great job putting the team together. And then my bias is coming in here, but I think Stan Bowman of the Chicago Blackhawks deserves a great deal of credit for what he's done, because of 2 Stanley Cups in a matter of 4 years is very impressive. And losing a few key players after 2010 and then coming back now in 2013, this last year, and winning was very impressive. So I think that's all I would change to your list or add to your list.
Oh yeah, I think those guys are also great general managers, know how to manage their money.
And there's many more that we
and
can
there's a lot more we could get into, but we don't really need to go into all that, because there's a lot of them in different leagues that are very similar.
Right. Yeah. So all right. Well, we're gonna take a quick break right now, but when we come back, we've got a little game to play where Andrew and I will act as general managers and see what we can do with certain salary caps and certain payrolls. See what we can put together. So we'll be right back. Hello and welcome back. As promised, we got a game for you. So this is what Andrew and I came up with, and we're going to call it
the GM
game. So we're just going to start by putting some of these things up here. What we're going to do is we're going to take a $60 million hard salary cap. We're going to take the NBA as our subject, and we're going to try and create a 12-man roster out of that NBA. So let us start with our starters. Andrew, why don't you start us off?
All right, Adam. So my point guard, Rajon Rondo, worth $12 million here. Shooting guard, Bradley Beal, worth $4.5 million. Small forward, Kevin Durant, worth $18 million. My power forward, Anthony Davis, worth $5.5 million. And my center, Andre Drummond, worth $2.5 million. So let's see your starting five, Adam.
I'm going to start with my point guard, Kyrie Irving, worth $5.5 million. Then I have my shooting guard, Steph Curry. We all know how he can just light on fire, worth $10 million. Then I got my small forward, Jimmy Butler, worth surprising $1 million. It's a little bit low, but then I've got my power forward. I chose Anthony Davis as well, worth $5.5 million. And then my center is going to be Joakim Noah, worth $11 million. So, we got pretty similar looking like starting lineups here. I think we both chose Anthony Davis, and
Anthony Davis, we can both tell he's going to be a superstar in the league, and he's reasonably priced salary for him being a superstar already, basically. So can't go wrong with him, I suppose. So you picked Kyrie Irving and Steph Curry, both sort of shooting guards and point guards.
Right. And if we look at overall our payroll right now, I think I'm slightly less than you. You got Kevin Durant and Rondo alone at $30 million. That's taking up half of your $60 million cap, and I've got $10 million in Steph, so then $21 million with Steph and Noah, plus a good $11 million between Kyrie and Anthony Davis is going to give me 32 plus one Jimmy Butler, so I got about $33 million over my entire starting lineup. It gives me a little bit of space. We can see a couple different mentalities about going through it, being a general manager here, and I think a big one is you kind of went for the knockout. You got a great player in Kevin Durant, a great Rajon Rondo, Anthony Davis and Bradley Beal make up a substantial amount. And Andre Drummond a little bit lower, but still a solid choice. And I've got a couple big guys now, Steph Curry and Noah, worth 10 and 11 million respectively, and then going a little bit lower, I think we see a difference in
a reasonably priced lineup,
a little bit deeper, reasonably priced lineup for me, and you might be a little bit top heavier
right now. A little more to work with, especially for your bench. You'd have a little more to work with than I do,
and that's a choice that you have to make as a GM. Is that so?
Sometimes, if you want to have a deeper bench with more depth, you go for go for a big bench.
All right. So who do you have coming off the bench right now?
So right now I got coming off the bench, I got Klay Thompson, who's a shooting guard, currently worth $2.5 million. I got my Kawhi Leonard, who's also he's a small forward, worth $2 million. I think that's a little underpriced, but it's all right. I got the Greek Freak and Giannis. I can't say his last name very well, but Giannis is he's a real good player, worth at $2 million right now. Then I got Rashard Lewis, a power forward, worth at $1.5 million. I got Marquise Morris, who's a power forward also, worth at $2 million. I got Jermaine O'Neal, man's a veteran. I like veterans on my team. He's a center worth at $2 million. And I got Andre Miller, who's also a veteran point guard, who's worth at $5 million. And then in total, my team's total budget comes out to be $59.5 million. So I'm just $0.5 million under the cap.
That's a solid team you got there. One thing I noticed is you got a lot of guys just worth not as much. Now, obviously, we talked about this a little bit before, but you got like 2.5, 2, 2, 1.5, 2, 2, and 5. A little bit different from what I chose to go with. Starting off, I think, one of the first off the bench I'd have Kyle Korver, prolific three-point shooter.
Great three-point shooter.
I got him at shooting guard or power forward. He's worth $7 million. I've got backup point guard, possible shooting guard, Kirk Heinrich, veteran in the league right now, worth $4 million. And then I'm going to look at Kenneth Fareed, a $1.5 million power forward.
Great rebounder.
And honestly, a little bit different. It looks like you went for a decent amount of veterans here. I kind of disagree. I went with a decent amount of young guys. I've got Jared Solinger, a couple of years removed from the league.
Love Jared Solinger.
I do like myself Sully, $1.5 million. He's a cheap guy, power forward and center. Personally, I'd pay him more than $1.5 million, but using the budgets right here. Then I've got Trey Burke, fresh rookie point guard at $2.5 million. And as obviously my two favorite players in the league right now, I've got my boy Cody Zeller, who is power forward and a center at $4 million. And then my favorite, Victor Oladipo, point guard and shooting guard at $5 million. And this brings my overall salary cap to beat you by $1 million at $58.5 million.
That's a good team.
Yeah, I noticed you went with some veterans. I like a younger player, a rookie team, something like that.
It's good to have a balance, I think. Mm-hmm. Good to have a couple of veterans, right. I think, sometimes to somehow teach the younger players, how to come up in the league. But overall, I think we both have two pretty good teams. I think teams that actually any NBA owner or general manager would actually desire. Mm-hmm. And too bad it's not as simple as this, obviously.
No. And $60 million is honestly a very difficult cap to deal with.
It is a very difficult cap to deal with.
There's a few teams under it. I know that there's a few teams under in the $50 million. That's what their payrolls are. And then there's a few teams like Brooklyn, who I think was valued over $100 million. So that's you got to really make the decision there. So it's really whatever it's the type of GM. Again, you went for a couple more big guys worth more money. And you had to then go lower money lower, and I went
compensate with that by
a little bit of reasonable.
Getting cheaper priced players. Though the talent's still there.
That's correct. Yeah, I think we put together some good teams. So
yeah, I think we did too. I wish I could see them play against each other.
So this was the latest installment of DormSports. It was a lot of fun today. This game looks pretty cool. It might be a little bit difficult to read, but with $60 million, we were able to put together two 12-man rosters, and I think we only overlapped on Anthony Davis, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty cool.
Which means we have a good variety.
Right. So, as I think what we can take away from this is, we've got a team where I put together a little bit younger players, a little bit more balance in each person's salary, and you have a couple more big guys and, a little more older guys. So I think, there's so many ways to be a GM, and you, as a GM, if you're going in to be a GM, you really have to decide what way suits you best. And I think we found kind of what our opinions are. So, thanks again for watching, and thank you to Ethan for the great little soundbite he provided us. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks, actually, because we'll be on spring break next week. But until then, thank you guys.
Until then, thank you very much.